If you think about all of the times that music and art has comforted you or held your hand in hard times or been there for joyous times, music matters and the people making it matter. And I gotta say, anybody out there who is an artist or a creative person, read the Rick Rubin book, The Creative Act. It is a game changer in terms of influencing you to follow your passion and your dream. Everybody else in the world be damned, because really I would not have put out all this music this year, which I had been creating, not knowing what I was going to do with it, had I not read that book last year and said, screw it, everything's coming out, and then the next thing, and then the next thing, and then the next thing.
Hi, everybody. My name is Andrea Gordon. I'm your host on Realizations, which is a podcast about everything to do with real estate and the lives our work touches and how important what we do is in relationship to different communities, our cities, transfer taxes, legislation, etc. You all know that the reason I started this was because of the NAR DOJ lawsuits that really disrespected our profession. And today is a little different than normal because I have an artist on as opposed to somebody involved with real estate. We are talking with Robbie Gennet. I was going to say Gennet, but it's Gennet. And the reason I was going to say Gennet is because I am a theater person, as many of you also know. And so it seemed interesting to me to bring Robbie, who is a survivor of the Woolsey Fire in Los Angeles, and also just someone who has had his finger on the pulse of what's going on as far as the society of LA as an artist for many, many years. And, my own interests in theater and music are to the fore of my being. So I thought that Robbie would be a good person to talk to about the intersection between our real lives and our art lives. So
Yes.
welcome to the show, Robbie.
Thank you so much for having me. How are you?
I'm good. So, Robbie,
Yes.
not only have you been a survivor of the fire in Woolsey,
Yep.
you also have surfed all over the world. You have written music since you obviously were 12 years old, since you described to me decades of music.
As soon as I could reach the piano, I was on it.
There you go. And you've written books. You have a book of lyrics coming out soon, I understand.
Yeah.
To me, how important is the place that you are from in the work that you do?
Very important. Look, wherever you are, whether you live in the middle of a city and you have all the city energy around you, or if you live out in the country and you have quiet stars at night, you really do, I think, kind of reflect the environment you're in. And I know there's certain people that put themselves in different environments to reflect off that. David Bowie,
Mhm.
famously going to Berlin or whatnot. I live out in the Santa Monica Mountains, so I feel like I'm close enough to get anywhere in LA, Hollywood that I want to be part of that, and then remove myself. And then I can be at a distant beach in 15 minutes where I don't see anybody but a couple of dolphins, and it's
Mhm.
nice. So, I think it's important to have time to be outside of the city life.
And you've made the choice to live kind of an alternative lifestyle. You have written for things like the Huffington Post.
That
Tell us a little bit about that.
that was interesting. I was on tour at the time, playing acoustic guitar and singing harmony vocals for an artist named Nick Lachey. And we were doing one of the many TV shows that we did, and Ariana Huffington was on. And this was at the time, maybe right when the Huffington Post was getting going. And I had a lot of thoughts in my head, so I just knocked on her door, talked to her. She gave me her number, and I started writing different pieces for that. Some on music, some on socioeconomics and society, and a couple of them took off. One of them I did on the weird history of aspartame, and a lot of people still write me about that. So sometimes I'm a curious guy, so I go with what I'm curious with, and sometimes just a knock on the door is what it takes.
Okay. And Nick Lachey, the name sounds familiar to me. I don't really remember who he
He was
is.
in a band called 98 Degrees, and then he had some reality show with Jessica Simpson, and then
Okay, I think I
post that
remember
show,
who.
he did the big breakup record, and I got to play in that
Oh,
period.
excellent. So you do session music as well?
I've done a little bit of, I guess what you could call hired gun, but look, if somebody, I'm known primarily as a piano player, but I've also toured on bass with Fuel. I
Hmm.
play rhythm guitar in a lot of the bands that I've worked with. So yeah, in the studio or on stage, if somebody needs what I do and the price is right.
Yeah.
I'm a dad now, so it would take a lot to get me to leave my kids. But at a time when I did not have kids, it was a lot easier to say, yeah, I'll go to Sweden and play, you know,
Yeah. 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 I totally get that. How many kids do you have?
two.
And how old are they?
Oh, they're just getting into the just getting up into the teenage years. We're trying to hold it back. But as you know, that can be a train that just rolls towards you.
Yeah, no kidding, no kidding. I actually, my birthday was last week,
Happy
and
birthday.
thank you. And my stepdaughter and her two daughters were there. It was a big, huge family dinner, and they're obviously going through it. And I reminded her of the times when she was 14 years old, when she'd go slam her door and tell her how much she hated me.
Right.
No, I felt like I was like the cool stepmom, and she should really love me.
But they get, if you have good messaging and you're consistent with your love, they get it after a while.
Yeah.
They do.
They will. Also, you're gonna be a tough act for anybody to follow, I have a funny feeling, and
Well,
so they're going to certainly try and push against you in many different unusual ways. I mean, they might even be, like, conservative or something.
I have a good relationship with them. We go out, they're very into sports, so I take them out bodyboarding in the waves. And I think that kind of time together is really bonding. And I think the ocean is an amazing teacher about
Yeah,
ourselves and about the ocean and about our limits and our humility, our grace, everything. So
yeah, I
for me
agree.
to get them to have a relationship with the ocean, which is an emotionless, I mean, it'll wreck you or it'll give you a beautiful ride, but it's not coming at you with any emotion. It helps you to be a little more maybe stoic in real life, you know?
No, absolutely. I went to school, and for undergraduate at UC Santa Barbara, and I can still remember walking on the beach and getting all the tar on my feet and all of that kind of stuff.
Yep.
I also did morning swims with a group of gals, and we would
Nice.
get into wetsuits, and we would swim from UCSB to the pier
Yeah.
and
Full
back.
stretch.
And there was one time when I misgauged it and I was getting pulled out. And it's one of the most both horrifying and exhilarating and everything memories that I had, because sometimes something in me made me understand to go back in at a diagonal, which
Right.
I had been taught to do, but I'd never experienced the situation before.
Right.
And so by the time I stumbled back onto the shore, I felt somehow like I had had a gigantic life lesson,
Yep.
and that I think I've been forever changed by that experience, because
Yep.
I truly was thinking I was going to die,
Yeah.
and there was no one to help me. I
Right.
was slower than everybody, so everybody else had already gotten there.
Yep.
And
It,
it was me and just trying to figure out what the hell to do, and it
yeah.
worked. I was very lucky that day.
You can make it, the ocean can make you feel like a very insignificant piece of meat floating off of the edge of a continent, like
Yeah.
you're just out there. So I love that.
Yeah.
And when I go out and paddle out, I like to think I'm not just paddling out into the waves, but I'm leaving the entire continent behind. All the politics and the BS and the everything, just leave it behind so I can sit offshore and be
Right.
apart from it, All the
Right, and
electronics.
we're all needing that a lot more and more.
We are. In Japan, they talk about forest bathing, and I
Yes.
certainly love to go and, wander in the mountains here, but, I think ocean bathing is important too, so
Yeah, yeah, and we're very fortunate here in California or on the
we
East
are.
Coast. So,
Yeah,
I don't know how you could ocean bathe in the majority of the country, but
that would be tricky, but,
yeah,
look, that's why I love being here. I grew up
yeah,
in Florida, actually, and, my relationship with the ocean is lifelong, but being out here where you get really serious swell and, all these different beaches and topography and coastline and bathymetry underwater, I mean, there's a lot of great stuff here and a lot of variety and, of course, a great community of people who are in the ocean. You're all together out there in a way.
yeah.
You're all alone together.
So, some question I have for you, did your parents get you started in with music lessons, or did you just figure it out for yourself? Was it public
I
school? Was it
That's a
what?
great it's a great question. I am not a schooled musician. I will tell you, I took home lessons from 6 to 14 off and on, and then quit and went on a journey of self-discovery because I didn't get traditional music education. And I was the kind of kid that had music in me, was remembering songs. So at about 6, my mom said, "Do you want to take lessons?" And I said, "Sure." And I did the every good boy does fine stuff. And
Yeah.
Traditional music education doesn't teach music as a language. It teaches it
Right.
phonetically through
Right.
notation. So a lot of people feel like they couldn't do music when the opposite is true. They couldn't do sheet music, but
Exactly.
everybody can sit down and make noise, make music, and take it as far as they want. So what I had was curiosity. And I
Mhm.
think that's the number one driver of success, not just in the arts, but in life. And if you're curious, you'll
Right.
put past the frustrations, the roadblocks, all of that.
My dad was a concert pianist and my mother was an opera singer. And
Oh,
so I
wow.
grew up around a lot of music. And, my mom would get me and my sister into musical comedies. And so we toured all over the United States
How
in The
cool.
Sound of Music or The King and I or whatever. There's always a kid in any of those musicals. And
Yeah,
it was how she managed to keep us, and not have to pay for childcare, frankly, while she was gone.
that,
Um,
that works.
yeah, and so I've had music in my life my whole life, but my father didn't want to teach me himself because he taught very advanced students, and so I got sent to this woman named Mrs. Hooties, who, has passed away a long time ago. She was from Denmark, and she was absolutely the sternest, strictest person I've ever dealt with in my life,
Okay.
and she would hit me over the hands with a ruler when I made mistakes.
That's old school.
And so I quit because I didn't tired of getting my hands hit,
Yeah.
frankly. And so I played violin as a kid. So I did read music and I did learn all of that stuff, but I wasn't really doing music in a real way.
Yeah.
I designed sound for a lot of plays that I was working on and have always been very involved in that. But when I turned 60, I decided to take up piano
Good
again.
for you.
And so I started taking lessons. My friend Eric Lenchner, who's a brilliant guitarist, you should know him actually.
Okay.
He used to have a band called Surf Pop Sludge the Ultras.
Okay.
He was part of Norman Salat group. He was part of the Zazu Pitts Memorial Orchestra. These are all like punk bands that were really important here, like
Right
450
on.
music, all of that, those kinds of things. Anyway, I had gotten my husband guitar lessons with him. And for my husband's 50th birthday, I had a big bash and I invited Freddie Roulette and his band to come play.
Okay.
And do you remember Freddie Roulette? He's passed on now. He was
Really?
one of the most important slide guitar players on the planet. He was
Okay.
freaking brilliant genius. Go look him up and listen to his stuff. Anyway, Eric got up in front. That his real name is Eric Lenchner, and not Sludge. Professor Sludge is what they call him. He got up, and you know how like bands are, and I'm sure you've done this before at some point in your life. Bands are very, very tolerant of people that get up at parties and want to play with
Of
them,
course. Yeah.
and they play Stairway to Heaven or some
Sure.
such. Well, so they invited Eric up because we were like sort of going, "Come on, go up and play."
Yeah.
And I have a video of Freddie Roulette's jaw dropping on the floor and the whole band going, "Oh my god," because he was like brilliant.
Awesome.
And anyway, but he also taught other sorts of music,
Yeah.
and so I started taking lessons with him. By the time I was 65, I'd bought myself a Steinway Grand.
Nice.
By the time I was 67, I bought myself a better Steinway Grand.
Okay.
And yeah, it's been one of the most important journeys of my entire life to get
I
back
love
to
that.
doing something that I love so much. I just turned 69 and I think by the time I'm 80, I'm going to be really good.
Well, I'll tell you from teaching when I taught at Musicians Institute, I was there for 7 or 8 years. There were a lot of students that came over from Asia who were high level classical players
Yeah,
that could sit down and play stuff that I don't touch. But when you took the music away, they were sitting in front of a piece of furniture and they all
exactly.
recognized that they had been denied the most important thing, which was their own voice and their own ideas. They got so proficient at playing other people's ideas and voices and thoughts that they were completely bereft of any ideas of their own. So to be able to kind of take those people and go back to square one, and you think about music as a language,
Yes,
and everybody would agree that music is a language. It's the only language we don't teach as a language. Because think about the way that you learned to speak. You probably said mama or dada, and then you started imitating people and you heard words and phrases and colloquialisms, and books were read to you, and movies and television and people talking. So you accumulated vocabulary, you accumulated skills, but every single conversation that you ever had from the first to right now has been improvised.
yeah,
Improvisation is the main mechanic of a language skill, but we don't teach music that way. The first thing we
right.
do is put up the sheet music And if you took a 2-year-old who just said mama and tried to force them to read a book before learning how to speak, it would seem absolutely
Right.
impractical.
Absolutely.
So if we're going to teach music as a language, we have to teach it without notation. And that's my book got a lot of controversy because people felt that it was anti-notation, which is not the case. I utilize notation. I write for strings. I write for horns. I actually learned to do that in my continuing education requirements at Musicians Institute. So I can write completely credible string charts, horn charts, anything that I need to, but I don't sight read classical music.
That's so interesting.
But I want to be able to have a conversation with people without notation to discuss the mechanics of music. And some people feel very threatened by that. And I don't really care because I want to help everybody be able to be liberated to be musical, regardless of their aptitude for notation, which is a phonetic language, period.
I totally appreciate that. I was a little snob when I was a kid. And since I was at UC Santa Barbara and my mother and stepfather were in New York City, I would have to get on planes and go back and forth. It was back in the days when there were a lot of bomb scares and things like that. And I got
and smoking on planes.
and I got stuck waiting for hours and hours and hours with the keyboard player for Grand Funk Railroad.
Oh, wow.
At LaGuardia Airport. And I was just so annoyed because I wanted to just go back home, but there was a chance we were going to be able to get on a plane. So we were all just like trying to sleep or whatever in the stupid waiting room. And I got to talking with him and found out that he didn't read music. And I was so appalled by the fact that he could not read music. And yet he was with this famous band. And then I thought on it after the fact because I was just, he was sort of hitting on me, to be honest with you. And I was like, I don't respect you at all because you don't read music.
So let me ask you a question. Did you not respect all 4 Beatles, Elton John, Bob Marley? Because all those people didn't read sheet music either.
So that's about what I was going to say, is that I have figured out over time that if you listen to jazz and you love jazz masters and you love a lot of those people never, ever learned how to read music.
And it doesn't make you illiterate. And that's the one thing that I really take umbrage. People who are, if you call it a notation snob using your words, they call it illiterate if you don't read music. And to call Paul McCartney illiterate, to call Elton John illiterate, to call Bob Marley illiterate is an affront to their obvious talents. To call Stevie Wonder illiterate, Taylor Swift, you pick it, Kurt Cobain. There's every time you go and see a live rock band, pop bands, there's not charts up there. You rehearse the stuff and then you go play, in classical music, in film music. Yes, there's charts and that's wonderful. And if that's the way they're going to do it, that's fine. But it can't be the only gatekeeper because I have so many people in your age bracket that say, oh, I wish I could play. And I say, well, why didn't you? They say, well, I was told I couldn't. I wasn't good at it. They were told they weren't good at sheet music, so they were denied a lifetime of musical pleasure. And
I agree.
That's something that keeps me motivated to keep talking to people and keep talking about this because I want people to be able to sit at a piano or on a guitar and just make some beautiful noise and not worry about the end result or if you're doing it professionally or if you can play like rock, like Eddie Van Halen. That's not what it's about. It's about being able to express yourself, even simply.
That's a question. Did Eddie Van Halen know how to read music?
That's a good question. I think early on, he was classically trained. He and his brother, actually, he got the drums, his brother got the guitar, and then they switched.
Lord. Oh, my Lord.
But
I didn't know that.
I would go out on a limb, and anybody out there can correct this, that in all of the recording of all the Van Halen records, there was not a sheet music notation chart utilized ever at all in any of the recording sessions.
Interesting.
Now, to learn, if I look at I go through old standard books. If I find a melody that I like, I play it off that, then I go play it. I can put the book away.
Right. Right. Well, like John Baptiste.
Yes.
Who recently put out an album where he took Beethoven's work and extemporized on it. And, and he's obviously a classically trained, Juilliard trained musician. But all that extemporization, I am sure, is just off his own incredible, brilliant mind.
Oh, yeah. Well, like Glenn Gould, who, but when Glenn Gould came out with his different versions of classical music, he was excoriated for that. They were,
I know.
They were aghast that he would do that. Look, you go back, guys like Chopin and Liszt were evidently fabulous improvisers. They could sit and improvise like crazy, but they couldn't record that. The only way you could record back in the days was recording it on paper, which is why everybody wrote such amazing stuff, because they got very good at writing that.
Yes.
Nowadays, there's nobody locked in a cabin with no electronics and just notation and a piano, only having that. And I think that's why we don't have a modern Mozart or a modern Beethoven. We have John Williams is probably our most famous modern classical style composer,
And
but
I was just thinking about that because they were playing a whole series of his different Star Wars and what have you on the
yeah,
classical station. I listen to classical music all the time. And I was thinking about how few musicians there are that have been, first off, the only things that would have the money to pay for the type of music that somebody like John Williams writes
right.
is my sister owns an audiophile recording company, by the way, and
Okay.
it's called Reference Recordings. And she's been nominated probably 60 times for Grammys. They've won like 30 of them. They're
Very
amazing.
cool.
They're based out of Pacifica, California. And I was thinking to myself how infrequently it is that somebody who writes a piece of new music is able to actually get it fully realized.
Yeah.
It's like film and television are the places where you can get those kinds of orchestras behind what you're doing. Same
Yeah.
thing occurs in, my world of theater. There is no money for it right now. So,
Right.
I run a reading series at the Magic Theater in San Francisco, and I produce and direct, and we lost all of our NEA funding. We don't have
Yeah.
it anymore. It's not
Right.
there. So people are going to have to find new ways to monetize things to the point where they can actually get done because everything is so damn expensive.
And
That's really
it,
the case.
you're right. And then it would take, huge financial backing, which is either going to come from a place that you have to pay it back or maybe have some strings attached or whatever. And not everybody has access to that backing. I'm not financially backed on my art at all. I'm making this out of the love of my heart. I released 10 albums this year, which is a huge undertaking and project. And
Enormous.
it was all recorded by me. I had 4 tracks I had my wonderful friend Michael Jerome play drums on, but everything else I played on, I mixed it, I did it all myself. And that is the only way you can really do it. We were talking before the interview. I have a musical that I wrote, and the idea of trying to workshop it or put it on just to
Oh,
get it to a point where somebody could see it.
it's crazy. I want to say 6 years ago now, my friend Lee Brady, who recently passed away, brilliant, amazing playwright, she wrote a 2-character country western musical called Southern Lights, and it had a band. It had a full band, and in order to get that produced, the band was the most expensive element in the entire thing,
Yeah,
and they were all union musicians, and they literally took up 3/4 of the budget that we had for the show,
yeah,
and it's just tough. It really is. I would love to do that play again, actually. A
yeah,
friend of mine has a country western bar in Georgia, and I would love to do that play again. Uh,
yeah.
and maybe there's a way to make that happen there. I think it would go over really, really well.
Well, I think nowadays the way that it's going to have to be done is to film it and put it online so people can see it. I think Hamilton's probably the best filming of a play I've ever seen,
Mhm,
and has kind
mhm.
of set the bar for how you could film it so it actually translates. That's kind of my plan, is if I get to a point where in order to do it, I'll put it on and I'll do it piecemeal, put it together. I'll create the band and, you know,
Well, do me a favor, send me a copy of the book for your musical. I would love to see it. And this has been a really delightful and interesting conversation. And I know,
yeah,
folks, that this is not what we normally talk about on my show, but it's a whole side of the world that is important for everyone. And life without music, life without the arts, life without just being able to go stand by the ocean and feel the surf at your feet,
yeah,
life without those things is meaningless.
yeah.
So,
If you think about all of the times that music and art has comforted you or held your hand in hard times or been there for joyous times, music matters and the people making it matter. And I got to say, anybody out there who is an artist or a creative person, read the Rick Rubin book, The Creative Act. It is a game changer in terms of influencing you to follow your passion and your dream. Everybody else in the world be damned, because really I would not have put out all this music this year, which I had been creating, not knowing what I was going to do with it, had I not read that book last year and said, screw it, everything's coming out. And then the next thing, and then the next thing, and then the next thing. So
let me
do,
write that down again.
do it.
What is his name?
Rick Rubin, he's a producer. He's worked with, he was in early hip hop with the Beastie Boys and LL Cool J, but he's worked with everybody, the Chili Peppers, McCartney. He's kind of become a bit of a guru. And
And
he's a
what's his
guy
book
that,
called again?
The Creative Act. and highly recommended no matter what you do, photography, dance, write plays. That is an important book about being creative and about doing it for the right reasons in terms of you're the audience for your art. Everybody else will come to it or not. That's not for you to even worry about. So
They're very wonderful. If people want your services, want to hear about you, do you have a website? Do you have anything?
Robbie Gennet, RobbieGennet.com. I'm also on Instagram, RobbieG.music, and very easy to find. My stuff's on YouTube, all over streaming. I am not hard to find. So somebody wanted me to record on their record or songwrite or do lessons or whatever. These are things that I do. I will say that I'm very choosy about who I teach. When parents come up to me and they say, I want to get my kids lessons, my first and only question is, can you keep them away from the instrument? Do you have to tell them to stop playing it? Are they falling asleep with their guitar? That's the only way they're going to persevere. So you got that, kid? And then when people do have kids that are musical, there's a lot of things that I can tell them to do to help just in case they become something really fantastic in pursuing their passions. And pursuing your passions when there's not a monetary goal in mind is still, I think, one of the most important things to do, because as an artist, this is my voice, the things that I have to say, the things that I have to do, which is why I don't water down what I do artistically with AI. AI is great to make product, but art must come from an artist, and your voice is everything. My voice.
You're preaching to the choir, my friend.
That's why I'm here.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much. Thanks for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Really lovely chatting with you.
Yeah. Take good care. Bye.
Bye.
If you loved hearing from these incredible voices shaping real estate, you'll want to catch what's next. Click the video on screen to keep discovering more inspiring stories.